So, everyone said it was a quiet fire season, and everyone's been saying that, and I'd like to beg to differ. What it was a standard, typical fire season. Whilst we didn't have any severe fires or fast-moving running fires that gave us days and days worth of headaches, we had the same numbers pretty much of the fire activity or the incident activity that we have every year. So I believe that there's a couple of reasons why that's occurred. So just sort of run through it. Interestingly, I was at a brigade meeting last night, and that particular brigade, the March Brigade, who are a very, very good, responsive brigade that turn out very quickly, and they do provide a lot of support to the brigades around it, particularly to their north, out around the Munning Creek and out around the Long Point area. And that brigade had 2 call-outs last season. So it's absolutely unbelievable. I was gobsmacked when I heard that. So they certainly had a quiet fire season, but across the board, not so much. So I'll explain why. We went into the fire season this year with some lessons from our previous years. So what we started out with was our operational response code, which I'll talk about in a minute, but it basically sets a bit of a standard of what actually occurs, how we do business and how we actually respond to our incidents and emergencies. And we've also tried to utilise other media as best as we can. So not just the standard media with the television and the newspapers, but also using Facebook and our website. And even to the stage now where we're using a lot of text messaging, particularly with our group captains. But for my money, it's the response code. It's this document here that we've got, which that's it. That's our response code. We've been going on this now for 3 years. This is our 3rd season that we've had this in place, and it's our pre-incident plan, if you like, for the whole of the zone. So whilst individual brigades may have their own pre-incident plan for particular jobs that they have, this is our pre-incident plan that sets benchmarks and sets the standard for responses. It's got a few things about it that explains some game rules, if you like. It sets tasks. So some of the boxes, like these boxes up here, set the tasks for various functions. So group captains, first arriving units, the operational staff, the logistics staff. We've got tasks in there for those. We've got some operational guidelines on the right about who's in charge and what the game rules are. But most importantly for me, it's the coloured boxes down the bottom left-hand corner, which set the triggers for responses. So, the yellow line is for the very high fire danger days. Then we've got the severe, the extreme, and the catastrophic in those different colours. And if anyone hasn't really looked at it before, it's up here. We've got a couple of spare ones that if anyone wants to take one home, they certainly can. But we've got triggers here that actually set the standard for what we send on any given day. So the idea of that is, as David was talking about a little bit earlier, we have had the same staff here since 2001, since we formed as a zone, and I think that's unprecedented across the state where any one district has had the same staff for that amount of time. So that goes some way to telling you how enjoyable our staff find their work and how rewarding it is. So we've now got the case where some of those, we're all getting a little bit older, and will at some stage or other, people will move on or retire, and there will be a successional change at some stage. What we're doing here is we're setting a culture. We're making sure that you, as the volunteers, get a service delivery that you wish to have. So in terms of, the type of support response you get from other brigades, the resource response in terms of heavy plant, and of course aircraft for times of fire. So when we go back to those fire incidents we've had, whilst we've had a similar number of incidents, they've all been kept small. And my belief is they've all been kept small because we've used this tool and we've responded it's been multiple brigade responses. We've responded plant very, very quickly, and that's all through the heavy plant register system that the Rural Fire Service has now through State Operations Logistics, which is first class, and through the aviation support that we have through the State Air Desk, which is also first class. We've never had it so good in terms of those sort of capabilities. So these days we actually now get rapid response of multiple brigades, fast response of heavy plant, and almost immediate response of aircraft to any fire that we get. And if we've got a trigger system in place that makes sure that our staff get that right, then that means that you on the fire ground get the best deal you can in terms of support. We can wrap the fires up quick, we can keep them small, and we all go home the first night rather than 2 or 3 nights down the track. So whilst it may appear quiet, we just haven't had those severe fires that have kept us busy. So we entered the season, if you remember back then, in October, with all the doom and gloom. It was a return to El Nino. There was going to be heat wave conditions happen, and in fact that did happen for the first 3 months of summer. You'll remember that we did have the hottest October on record, and that was after the driest winter on record. And some of the heat wave conditions even into December. I think Sydney had its hottest day on record in December. Yep, it's in recorded history. So we did have a little bit of that. I'll just play you a bit of a news grab here. Hopefully this will work all right. Love a bit of technology.
Temperatures, low rainfall and a parched landscape. New South Wales is bracing for a difficult bushfire season. The season officially starts tomorrow, and authorities are predicting an above normal year. That's more severe than the forecast before last season, where more than 200 homes were lost in bushfires.
Without being alarmist in any way, we are being realistic based on the forecast and the underlying conditions that this season is shaping up to be a difficult one, and on the forecast alone, more problematic than what we experienced last year.
Research shows 1 in 4 people affected in last year's fires did not have a bushfire plan.
There you go. So
Peter Overton.
Good evening. A blunt warning on the eve of the bushfire season. This year will be worse than last. Firefighters say the potent mix of forecast hot temperatures, little rainfall and strong winds will put 1 million homes at risk across the state. And they were given a taste of the danger that lies ahead when a fire in Sydney's northwest threatened to burn out of control.
there you go. So at the start of the season it was all doom and gloom. That was pretty much the start of the bushfire season.
We're barely out of winter. The signs and sounds
in
of summer
October.
are...
And this particular bit of footage is from
The first day of December, and there are already
December.
predictions of a bad fire season. Today, the government urged communities across the state to get ready for summer.
Police and firefighters are worried it's shaping up as a long, hot ordeal for communities and emergency services.
Australians love their summer, there's no doubt about that, but we know it also comes with some inherent risks. So we're asking people to get ready for summer.
Already the danger is becoming all too real. 60 fires are currently burning across New South Wales. Firefighters are on edge.
But the outlook ahead for the next 3 months is a continuance of hot, dry conditions. The Bureau of Meteorology are firming up the late forming El Nino pattern, which is going to dominate that hot, dry summer.
They're pleading for people to be summer ready.
It's important that people do a few things.
Righto. So there we go. That was in December. So for that first 3 months, we had some significant summer activity, and it was very fortunate for us that we had that responsiveness from our brigades to ensure that whatever we did get during those times, we were able to wrap up as quickly as possible. Some of the tools that we did get, David spoke earlier that we had a bit of an upgrade to our ops room, and those of you and other members of the brigades who have actually worked in our ops room with our communications group or as helpers in other IMT functions can attest to the fact that when you're working in an operations room that's got no windows and you can't see outside, it's quite difficult to actually get a bit of a handle on what's actually happening outside, particularly when the air conditioning's going and it's quite nice and cool in there, and you hear all your outside world connection is basically taken by radio or telephone. So we were able to remove a couple of projectors that we had, projectors like these ones with a couple of big screens, and actually put some interpretive screens in there and some touch screens to give us a better picture of what the outside world was like at that time. And I can tell you that it is very informative. particularly for the weather information that we're able to provide, but also the ability to broadcast that information to everybody in the room. So it's we're sharing the information as best as possible. And you know, after dinner, we'll turn some of that stuff on. So if you want to have a look at that and ask a few questions, I'll be in there and show you that for sure. So in terms of the numbers, so the fire season incidents we had this year is 223. The number in the brackets was last year's fire season. So those people that say we had a quiet fire season, yes, it was quiet in terms of severe fire activity, but it wasn't quiet in terms of numbers. Area burnt during the bushfire danger period was 1,155 hectares, and that's 1,021 on the previous year. So again, more area burnt. And the year-to-date incidents, so that's from the start of the financial year, from 1 July, 337 versus 346, so a little bit down. So our fire season was a little bit more active, but those times outside the fire season not quite so active. So there you go, our fire season incidents, 223, that's 70% of the work that we've had. And we're talking about total incidents here, not just fires, it's motor vehicle accidents, all that sort of stuff. So in terms of by local government area or by district, who's winning? It's Canobolas wins the game every time. Probably being the largest local government area, the largest shire in our zone. Something like almost 40 brigades, 36 brigades I think. Yeah, and 6,000 square kilometres. They certainly get the lion's share of the calls. But you can see there, Blaney 59 incidents, Bowden 149, Cowra 56 and Orange 53. So actually Cowra does quite a good job in keeping the numbers down given the size of the shire and the type of... there's more cattle, Sergio. Alright, so this is the most important one for me. It's the fires by size. So we had just 6 incidents were greater than 100 hectares. Our largest fire was the Millamallong fire. Where's all the Blaney guys? Not many. Yeah, good on you, Kim. Yeah, the Millamallong fire, which is actually 2 fire events, spaced 6 days apart, but at the same site, 226 hectares, our largest fire for the season. I think the season before that, our largest fire was 320 odd, which was John Keller's fire. The Central Munning, it's about 300 odd. The year before that, 429, I think, the Long Point fire. So every year we're getting better and better and better at minimising the size of the fires. And it's not through, you know, we're not having cooler summers and we're not having better weather. It's not wetter. So it's only through diligence and through good planning, through great response and through support of the other resources and tools that we employ very, very quickly. And we do it because of these. Right, the incident types, this is across that period, 164 fires, 153 non-fire incidents. So motor vehicle accidents, structure fires, structure fires are in the 164. So the next one, bush and grass, 138, MBA 67, vehicle fires 14, structural fires 13. So that's a bit of a breakup of where we get our calls from. And then there's all the other calls as well, like the good intent calls, or the chimney fires, or the oh my goodness chips, or whatever it might be. A couple of little photos for you. This is the Millamallong fire. You can see the sort of topography that the guys are working in, very up and down, difficult country to access, particularly into the gullies. And that was very early on. I think that was about the 11th of October. Very early on in the season, particularly for Blaney. And good fuel load there at that time, like a good load of grass there. This is a fire at Cumnor, Yalundri fire. Where are you, Norm? That's your fire, mate. So that's the Yalundri fire. It was a harvesting fire. So it destroyed the header. And that was a pretty big one too. I think that was one of those ones over the 100 hectares. One of the 6 that was over the 100 hectare job. Good thing about that was we certainly responded a lot of tankers to that fire, and we responded aircraft. I think, Norm, you turned the aircraft back or only used one load? Yeah, so we sent the aircraft to another fire, which I'll show you a photo of that shortly. But just shows how quick a response of ground resources can quite often beat the need for the aircraft anyway. So it was a good save. Tantallon fire, so out in the Orange Mullong Road country, Barry's area, went pretty close to the Tantallon homestead there, as you can see, and started from, we believe, a person pulling off the side of the road using probably a mobile phone, but it was a roadside type ignition, and fairly windy day that day, and pretty well wrapped up that night. And then there was another 2 or 3 days or so of patrol after that, and probably some work by the property owners for the next week. But yeah, pretty good job when all said and done. One of our plant operators, who's also a member of a brigade, just happened to be on the way home back into Orange at the time, had his grader on the float, and we got a request to say, the group captain rang me and said, Bruce has got his grader on, do you want him to swing up to the fire? We said yes, and then we organised it through State Operations Logistics, and that proved to be a bit of a saving grace on the day. And then the excavator, this same fire, the excavator was on there for the next 2 days, just bowling some trees over that were pretty close to the edge that we need to sort out. This particular fire, I love this photo, and I love this photo because look how green it is. And count how many fire trucks are there, and you can't see 3 of them. So this is on the same day that header fire at Cumnock, and that aircraft that Norm turned around went to this fire because we didn't know what it was. It was a lightning strike to a tree, and it was this particular tree, and all we got was grass alight, lightning strike in the Millthorpe area. Now, the Millthorpe area at that time, Millthorpe, Shadforth, and a little bit out towards Guyong, was the only green country that we had within the Canobolas zone at that time, and that was because there was a hailstorm sort of area. Rodney Oxley, you here? Yep. So you had a, where are you? You had a bit of a hailstorm go through there a couple of weeks before this, and brinked all the cherries, and this is what caused the green grass. Now, this picture to me says everything that this should do. So it was a very high fire danger day. We'd already had the fire at Cumnock. We had 13 or 14 trucks that engaged at that fire at Cumnock. This call came in about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So we sent Lucknow, Spring Hill, Bing, Millthorpe, Orange, and that's probably it, I think. So all up, there's probably, I don't know, 8 trucks at that fire and an aircraft. And you can't see it in that photo, there's actually a piece of plant there, but it is a private piece of plant. But irrespective of what the conditions, the fuel conditions were, and we didn't know what the fire was like, a multiple brigade responsive aircraft, and we did have some plant available. That's our attitude, basically. That's what we're going to send every time during these sort of conditions. So it just happened to be that it was green, didn't go anywhere, everything was okay. But that to me is a great picture that points out I suppose, the ethos that we have in terms of response. So we didn't have a great deal of out of area requests this year. It was pretty quiet. We sent a couple of people to Mid-Lachlan Valley to assist with the fires that they had around Tullamore, and they also had the one out of Bowden Gate. That was all at the same time. We sent one person to the Blue Mountains to help out the Cliff Road fire. That was me. We had 10 crew go over to South Australia for a period, got flown over and drove the trucks back, I think. And we had 3 go up to the Pilliga just recently. Thanks, Mark, wherever you are. So it was pretty quiet that way. In terms of what went well this year, and as part of our after-action review, we had a pretty good awareness of what we're expecting during the year, particularly for the first half of the summer. One of the difficult things, people always say, what's the summer's going to be like? And we drag out the crystal ball and we have a bit of a gaze into it, but it doesn't really tell us much, so you're having a bit of a best guess type thing. But we did have a plan and we were prepared. We are absolutely strong on making sure that we deploy whatever is needed on that day, and that's because of this, because it dictates terms. And we do use aircraft, we do want to use plant as quickly as possible. And we do want to have early containment, and we do want to have a strong patrol. And that Millamalon fire this year, I think, taught a few lessons about having strong control over several days, particularly when it's quite dry. More of those lessons learned were just the rapid weighted response. So it's not just, you know, on a bad day send 2 trucks out. On a bad day we're sending 6 or 8. And we are sending aircraft and we are sending the plane. We do want to maintain fire-ground control. We don't want to see the day where we have somebody back in our control room, as I said, with no windows, taking charge of fires and incidents. We want to have our group captains out there supporting the local captains, taking charge of the fire operations on the ground, keeping the incident control as close to the fire ground as possible so that the decisions can be made quickly and people get the job done. We did, based on some lessons learned, we did fine-tune our tasks to the seconding group officer a job, and they're listed here. We're starting to use better use of communications networks. We've got a pretty good, robust installation program now for VHF fire-ground radios. We haven't had, you know, a great system for that in the last 5-6 years, so now we've got a pretty good program for that. And we will be communicating better logistics support across the fire ground to make sure the simple things happen, that people get fed and people get relieved at the right time, those sorts of things. And we do want to have our after-action reviews as close to the fire ground as possible, because that's when you get the right people there. So even if it's at the fire ground, you know, a week later, or if it's a local bowling club a couple of weeks later, that's what we want to do. In terms of what we plan to do over the next off-season, we want to do some more CCC training for our group captains. A number of our groupies in the last, prior to the last fire season, we actually got command control and communications training rolled out. There is some more aircraft evaluation training for our captains and group captains this year, and they're locally at Forbes. As David pointed out, we're doing our digital radio network migration as of the 1st of June. That's when we reckon we'll have all our testing and we'll be satisfied. And we'll be doing some communication workshops to make sure people know how to use the radios properly, again, as we did last season. That's it from me. Happy to take any questions. Stunned silence. That's one. All right.
Thanks, Brett.
No problem.